guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new IDontWorkHereLady content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, "He Made an Official Complaint. I Don't Work There." This happened a couple of months ago. Backstreet, I'm a youth worker, and part of my job involves taking clients to a bowling alley. I do this a few times a week, sometimes more than once a day, and usually at odd times, 9 a.m. Monday bowling anyone. So the place is basically my second office, and we have a good relationship with the proprietors. During the quiet hours, they only have 2 staff working. One in the office / front desk / cafe, 3 separate locations BTW, and 1 behind the scenes. It means that often there's a bit of standing around waiting when the front of house staff member is in a different area. Myself and the other weekday regulars, mostly senior bowlers, are used to it. It actually works well for me because part of what I'm doing there is teaching my clients social skills and coping strategies. So having to occupy yourself and be patient and polite is a good teaching moment. My client and I have finished bowling, and we're sitting at the cafe eating and talking quietly when a man approaches the unattended cafe and immediately starts huffing and pacing restlessly. I side-eye him, but keep talking to the kid. A minute later he comes and looms over our table and says, "Excuse me," in an aggressive tone. Now I've got my calm neutral face on, but inside I've started jiggering because I hate confrontation. This guy is actually massive. The kids I work with are the zero to kick your ducking teeth in kind, and they often get very protective of their workers, in a sweet but ducked-up kind of way. So if this guy tries to start something, there's a good chance there will be red and blue flashing lights in my immediate future. "Yes?" I inquired politely, keeping one eye on the kid, one hand on my phone, and a vapid smile on my face. "How about you do your job?" He leaned down over the table. His breath was as unpleasant as the rest of him. I was surprised, because sitting at a bowling alley eating curly fries with a 15-year-old at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday was my job, and I was doing it well, thank you very much. I was also alarmed because said 15-year-old has become very still and very tense. Not good. I moved back in my seat and resumed the vapid smiling. "Oh, sorry, I don't work here. Sometimes you have to wait a minute for someone to see you and come over, but otherwise maybe try the front desk." "Well, you're dressed like you work here." He leaned over more and jabbed, he jabbed me, my chest. The staff at this bowling alley wear black trousers and violently orange polo shirts that match the violently orange walls. Awful. I'm glad I don't drink because going in there with a hangover would kill me. I was wearing baggy hippie pants, my purple manic pixie dream tarantula tee, and a sparkly sequin backpack, and a lanyard with the word staff printed on it. I held up the company ID card at the end of the lanyard, which identified me as an employee of the nonprofit I work for. "No, sorry, I work for company name. We're customers here. Now, if you don't mind, you're being very rude." Me, trying to role model, terrified. I smiled my best everything is fine smile to the kid eyeing the cutlery bucket. "Don't talk to me like that, you little idiot. I want 3 beers and some wings." He actually smacked the table with his hand. I looked over to the main area. Oh goody, he has friends. I leaned back as far as I could. The wall was behind me, tables either side, and in blocking my exit. The kid stood up. Bad. Staff members spotted us and started rushing over. Good. We had a time for a few rounds of "I want to speak to your manager. I don't work here though. Please let me out," before the actual manager of the bowling alley reached us. He pulled the guy away so I could get up, but dude wants to speak to my manager and won't let up. Manager says, "I am the manager here." Dude, "You're her manager." Manager, "No, she doesn't work here." Dude to me, "I want to speak to your manager now." At this point I figured, why not? Handed him one of our company business cards and said, "Asked for my manager's name." He turned away to dial the number and I grabbed the kid and whispered, "Now watch him make a dick of himself." Kid laughs and relaxes a bit, thank duck, and the 3 of us stand in a row and watch this dip crap call my actual manager and complain that I wouldn't serve him beer and chicken wings. My manager actually took the complaint on an official form and made me sign it when I got back to the office. Meanwhile, due to his band, the bowling alley gave the kid a huge pile of free arcade tokens in apology, and I was able to get him to give me back the knife he stole before I dropped him home. Wins all round. The next story is titled Karen. I want this troglodyte fired and arrested. This was the very early 90s before the internet, or the Karen phenomenon. I live in a small town in a rural county. I worked for a local law enforcement agency during the day and at a large retailer at night, stripping, scrubbing, waxing the floors. It was a ton of hours, but you gotta pay the bills. This afforded my wife the opportunity to work normal hours and be there to take care of the kids. Our sons were 3 and 4 at the time. One night, I was particularly tired. Things were pretty much caught up at work, and I was wandering around in full zombie mode. My manager told me to go ahead and wrap up my work and clock out at midnight. I usually worked until 4 a.m. I get home about 20 minutes later to find a strange car in my driveway and a strange man and my wife. I walked in my bedroom right in the middle of some overly passionate kissing. Given my profession and training, they were terrified that I would kill them or worse. I've always prided myself in being able to control even the most dangerous situations by talking people down and avoiding any use of force, no matter how tense things got. I just stood there and ordered him to get out of my house and take that whore with him. I was beyond furious but managed to hang on to the last strand of control that I had. As they ran out of the house, I shouted after her that she could come pick up her things from the yard in a couple of days. Fast forward 3 days. I am a total wreck. I have not slept and barely eaten and have been walking around borderline in shock. My wife and kids were my entire world, and it was all suddenly torn down around me. I called my supervisor at the department and told him everything that happened and asked for a few mental health days. He agreed and gave me the time off. I didn't need to be around the public in that state of mind with a weapon. We have legal insurance at work. It works like medical insurance. You pick a lawyer from a list of providers in their specialty for discounted or even free services. The lawyer I chose was in the next county in the big city. Our meeting did not go well. She advised me that even with what had happened, the court would most likely rule that since she is the mother, she gets the kids and I would have to pay her child support, which is exactly what happened. It was a different time back then. I staggered out of her office, feeling like I had been kicked in the gut. I was already in very bad shape, and this just pushed it to 11. My mouth was very dry and my throat felt like it would close. I desperately needed something to drink. This was a very posh part of town. Very old homes and very old money, just down the road from the yacht club and such. There were no convenience stores anywhere to be found. There was, however, a rather high-end grocery store nearby. I really did not want to be around people, but I was desperate for something to drink. I was dangerously dehydrated, so I went in. This is where our story begins. Cast of characters: CDV, Cruella de Vil; NL, nice lady; SM, store manager; Po, police officer; me, tired wreck of a man falling apart at the seams. I should start by saying that I was wearing tan khakis and a green polo shirt. The employees of this store wore either black or tan khakis and green polos with the store logo embroidered on the breast. A slightly different shade of green, but not enough to notice unless we were standing side by side. I was on the drink aisle staring at the bottles of Gatorade, Powerade, etc., but I wasn't really noticing anything. I was staring straight through the shelves. My mind was a million miles away. I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my left upper arm as someone grabbed me hard and tried to snatch me around. Out of instinct and training, I grabbed the wrist with my right hand, twisted it up and over, put my left hand on the upper arm and slammed them into the support column next to the shelf. I quickly looked around to check my surroundings and noticed 5 or 6 customers staring at what was happening. I then looked at my attacker. It was a scrawny old lady. I released her and stepped back. Remember the original 101 Dalmatians movie? She looked very much like Cruella de Vil from that film. Hair that was obviously colored, long fake nails and way too many rings, and a necklace that looked like a string of small Christmas ornaments. Even though she looked to be in her late 60s, she must go to aerobics or something because she had some decent muscle tone under her saggy, overly tan, leathery skin. As she was composing herself, I heard the nice lady behind me ask if I was okay. I turned to look at her, and she pointed at my arm. I looked down and saw blood running down my arm and dripping on the floor. When I pulled her hand off of my arm, 2 of her fake nails must have cut my skin. It wasn't actually bad, I just bleed very easily. At this point, I heard a screech. I turned towards CDV, just in time to hear, "CDV, how dare you, peasant." Yes, She called me a peasant. Do you know who my husband is? Then she reached back to take a swing at me. As she tried to slap me, I simply stepped back at the last second, causing her to miss. She lost her balance and fell forward. She knocked several drink bottles off of the shelf and fell face first into a shelf, causing her lip and nose to bleed. About this time, the manager rounded the corner and asked what was going on. Apparently, he saw her try to hit me and fall down. CDV. I want this troglodyte, gotta love her vocabulary, fired and arrested. The manager looks at me and tells her that I do not work there. CDV, bullcrap. He ignored me and refused to assist me, then attacked me and tried to kill me. About this time, I saw a local police officer rounding the corner. Apparently, one of the customers had the store call them as soon as this all started. PO must have been very nearby. Excellent response time. CDV. Putting on her best victim face, oh thank God you're here. I am Mrs. CDV, and I want this monster arrested. He tried to kill me. With the sad puppy dog eyes and crocodile tears. NL. Excuse me, officer, that's not what happened at all. She grabbed him and, CDV. Stop lying to cover for him, you trollop. CDV spectacular vocab again. Me, holding up my department ID for PO to see. I do not work here. I work in my local department. Me turning to SM and pointing up. Do those cameras work? NL, excuse me POs, see the blood on his arm. Pointing to the bleeding scratches on my arm. That's where she, CDV. Stop lying for him. My husband is Mr. CDV and you'll do what I say right now, or I will call him and he will destroy all of you. Po, ma'am, maybe it's best that we come to SM office to discuss this. As we all turned to leave, he asked SM to take her to his office, while he talked to me for a second. Po, having apparently dealt with her before, okay, so what actually happened? I told him and reminded him that it will all be on tape as I pointed back up to the camera mount. NL. Po, I can tell you that she was screaming at him for a while and then attacked him for no reason. I was on the aisle and saw the whole thing. Then she looked at me. Didn't you hear her screaming at you? Me, I'm sorry. I was lost in thought. I didn't notice her until she grabbed me. I also have pretty bad tinnitus from my time in the military, so that could have also contributed to me missing CDV gentle requests for my assistance. Po, thank you ma'am. I'll need your contact info for the report and possible testimony. Turning to me, I'll need your info as well. I gave him one of my department business cards. He advised me to let my department know right away. He also told me that her husband actually is someone very important in the city. He was a retired city commissioner and former CEO of a big insurance agency, and that many big city leaders, all the way up to the mayor's office, were basically in his pocket. I went directly to my supervisor's office and told him the whole story. He had me fill out an incident report and all supplemental forms. He said it sounded like a clear case of self-defense, especially if it was all on camera. She'd probably be charged with aggravated battery, since there were injuries. And that was it. Nothing else ever happened. I never heard another thing. I called my uncle, who was a longtime officer in that department, and my inspiration for going into law enforcement, and even he couldn't find anything about it. No police report or anything. It was all swept under the rug and forgotten. I guess the moral of the story here is that money talks. Except for 3 more quick in and out trips to the lawyer's office, I never went to that part of town ever again. The next story is titled, I Don't Work Here Lady, Disneyland Edition. Just stumbled across this sub a couple days ago and have a story for you all. So me and my GF took a trip to Disneyland, Paris a few years ago, as our first holiday together. We were having an awesome time in the parks, etc. But one day was incredibly busy, so we decided instead of queuing hours for rides, we would do some souvenir shopping instead for a bit. We are in a store in Disneyland browsing various mugs, fridge magnets, plush toys, the general overpriced stuff. When a very sweet English woman asked me if I could help her across the store as I'm a tall guy 6'4", I said, yeah, that's fine. I get it at home and supermarkets all the time, so no biggie. Turns out her daughter wanted a specific Winnie the Pooh toy that was at the top of a huge pile of plushes. I gladly grabbed it down for her and gave it to the little girl, who was over the moon. This is where things got strange. A fairly young French lady moved over to me chatting in French and gesturing at a shelf with some glasses on it. I speak a tiny bit of French, but definitely not enough to know what she wanted, so I politely told her sorry, I speak English and I'm not an employee. I was wearing jeans and a wine-colored hoodie, which is not even remotely close to Disney cast members' uniforms. The French lady stormed off and I thought that was that. I went and found my GF, and we were looking at some gift ideas for our families, when from right behind me, I heard a woman say "this is him" in English, but with a French accent. I turned around to see the aforementioned French lady who had dragged an actual employee over to me to give me a scolding. Her accent was very heavy, but she said something along the lines of "he helped someone but not me. Workers should be trained better." The actual Disney employee immediately could see I was a guest at the park, apologized and led the woman away. All we could hear from the other side of the store was the French lady shouting and getting very irate. I assumed she was removed from the store. Anyway, me and my GF took a couple of Minnie and Mickey Mouse mugs to the register to pay for, and the employee who sorted the situation was on the next register. She said, "Please wait there." She toddled off and came back a couple minutes later with a stuffed Luke Skywalker Mickey Mouse and a stuffed Princess Leia Minnie Mouse for my GF. "These are for you as way of an apology. It's not necessary, was just a misunderstanding," I said, but she insisted. So we got some pretty cool free souvenirs, thanks. Angry French lady. The next story is titled "Karen is shut down by my uniform." It was hot last week, 33°/91F, but felt like 42°/108F. I had some birthday party items to pick up for a work-related function. I was in my summer uniform, shirt, no jacket, and I went to Walmart because they got a decent party section and Fantastica/C. I found my way to the right section and chatted briefly with a sales associate. I started gathering the supplies I needed and putting them in my cart. I pulled one item, and it caused a cascade of everything else behind it to fly onto the floor. My mother always taught me that if you make a mess, clean it up. So I squat down and start putting the stuff I spilled back on the shelf. Then from over my right shoulder, I hear a hum. I kept putting the stock back. Shame on me for not responding. I hear a voice that's somewhere between the caw of a crow and the rasp of a 30-year, 2-packet a smoking habit. "I'm talking to you. Stop stocking the shelves and tell me where the art supplies are." I turned my head, and there before me was a vision standing 40-ish, with an asymmetrical haircut, laden with gold-colored jewelry, colored because there were green marks around her neck, in a pink sports bra and short shorts made of this amazingly strong synthetic knit fabric. She obviously firmly believed one size does indeed fit all, but missed the part about it shouldn't. I said to this woman, one of God's own very special creations, "I'm sorry, I'm Canadian, but I don't cut off. You're a manager. Tell me where the supplies are." I rephrased, "I don't work here. Can't help you." She wanted to talk to my boss and threatened to call corporate to let them know their managers are lying about working there to avoid helping customers. Then she launched into a string of invective worthy of a longshoreman. So I stood up and turned to face her. She was struck dumb. Her mouth was moving but no sound was coming out, and she had gone pale under her shoe leather tan. Now, to be fair, I was wearing a light blue shirt and dark gray dress pants. But it's my uniform that made the difference. I have a white-collar type of job. I am the chaplain at a medium security prison, the chaplain for a group of World War II veterans, and the chaplain for a group of Afghan war veterans being treated for post-traumatic stress syndrome (PTSS). This last group is the one I was shopping for. You know you've been hanging around military veterans when cursing doesn't even faze you anymore. So there I was in my light blue shirt with my clerical collar. I asked her, "Do you kiss your children with that potty mouth?" Then I told her that corporate doesn't have a phone, but if she wanted to talk to my boss, she could do so directly on Sunday at the church just a few blocks away from the Walmart. By this time, her vocal cords had recovered, but the only sound coming out was a cross between a squeaky door hinge and a chicken that just laid an egg. I turned and pushed my cart down the aisle toward the checkout. The sales associate I spoke with earlier was just around the corner. Apparently, he came back to the aisle to see what the screeching was about and had seen the ending. He was doubled over with silent laughter, holding his sides. All he could do was mouth, "Thank you." And I was off, a man on a mission. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.